Hi, Hugh Jones here, aka Fox Control, and welcome back to my home studio. Today I want to show you 5 ways that you can use distortion to make your sound better. Don't forget, if you're enjoying these videos, hit the like and subscribe button right now. Distortion seems to be getting a really bad rap these days, and also seems to be only reserved for guitarists for some reasons. But what I want to show to you is how you can use distortion to make your sounds louder, have heaps more texture and vibe, maybe soften your transients, maybe glue sounds together, and overall just give your sound an appeal that it didn't have before. So if your recordings or even like your live performances are sounding a bit flat, here's some ways that you can use distortion to absolutely push that vibe out to your listeners. I find that synths love distortion. In fact, I think you can treat a synth a lot like a guitar. They sound amazing when they're mic'd up through a guitar amp. They also sound amazing when they're absolutely dialed through some preamps like what I've got here in this little lunchbox. I've got the API pre, I've got this Retro 500 pre, and I've got this Loop Trotter pre, and these are all basically just 3 distortion units. And what we'll do is we'll run an up from this sub fatty through this unit, and you can hear for yourself what it sounds like. Okay, let's wind up the gain on this Retro 500 pre. Let's hear the gain on this API preamp. I hope you really dug that little demo and how we could take quite a plain and simple sound, and by adding that distortion we're making it exciting. I really find this Retro 500 pre just takes the harmonic structure of the sound and just like a scared cat just spikes the hair on its back and makes it really thrilling and exciting to listen to. And even you would have heard just by altering the amount of saturation and distortion over the course of the piece or of the demonstration arpeggio, that it was more interesting to listen to, just because you've got this moving ebbs and flows, this dynamic shift, and the sound is starting to modulate it and moved, just like how sound does in the real world, or even how sound does when you just move your head around, you get different perspectives on it. So distortion can absolutely help you with that, of taking something simple and just making it exciting. I love that filthy, dirty breakbeat sound. And a lot of those breaks were made up from samples of recordings from the 50s, 60s, 70s and onwards. And you had heaps of conversion process as well as distortion from the original recording. So I'm going to show you some drum recordings. They're all going to be made with one microphone. That's the U67 from Neuman. And the first one is going to be the sound of London in the 60s. So I've got the Neuman set in Omni mode, and that's running into this Chandler preamp. It's the Chandler EMI Abbey Road preamp, and I've just got the thing absolutely dialed. And hello, London 60s. For this second drum sound, we're going to go to the other side of the Atlantic for the Motown sound. We'll do that by running our Neuman U67 into a Universal Audio 610 preamp and then into the 1176 compressor. I've got these both combined into one unit, and that's the 6176 from Universal Audio. The first sound you'll notice is just that classic Motown, a little bit gritty, really vibey, and this unit actually sounds really good with bass plugged into it as well. Bass loves the 610 saturation. And then wait for the second example that's really extreme. The other thing that distortion can do is make things sound really, really loud. And that's simply perceived volume versus actual volume. I hope you dug these examples of just one mic on a drum kit absolutely cranked. Sorry about the drumming, let's move on. From observation, I actually think that people generally love distortion. I mean, we love a distorted guitar. We love those old Beatles recordings, and they are really distorted. And that seems to be one thing that's missing today, and why some people might say music doesn't sound the same anymore, because it doesn't have the same distortion. You would get a lot of that distortion from running microphones into preamps, and then preamps into consoles, and then consoles onto tape. And these are all conversion processes that add distortion. And if you get a bit of an overzealous engineer that starts to push things a little bit, then you start to hit those lovely saturation points. And that's something you can think about with your own productions. If you're doing everything in the computer, it's hard to add that distortion and that natural sounding distortion. There's a lot of plugins that emulate it, but simply by taking a signal out of the computer and running it through a few boxes, or turning it into air and then amplifying that again, so reamping, running a drum beat out of a speaker, miking that up and then back into the computer, you'll just start to get distortion. So check this out, guitar loves distortion. I mean, some would say that the sound of the electric guitar is a distorted electric guitar. What I'm going to do today is actually apply a bit of focus distortion to the guitar. I'm going to record a nice, clean, cool tone through this little practice amp here, and then let's add some focus distortion, and you decide for yourself, see how you think it sounds. Focus distortion is a really great way for getting things to cut through in a mix, or to give different elements their own place in a mix. And it's really cool to add excitement and to add drive and push, and yeah, you see what you think. Watch this. we're going to take a bit of a different approach this time and use some distortion from In the Box, and we'll take that guitar lick from before and let's apply Ableton's overdrive. Now we'll focus it a bit more. So we'll start the lick dry. Okay, so let's start the lick with the distortion on and turn it off. So as you've just heard, just by focusing that overdrive and pushing the energy in a new place, you start to tune your sound, and you can adjust it, and you can choose how you want your sound to settle into a mix, and the fuzzy bits under distortion will help it join in with the other sound in the mix. It also really changes the element on its own. It's really cool for voice, maybe if you've got a recording that's a bit boxy, or maybe you've got a drum loop and you want to get the snare to pop a bit more. This is a really great technique for that. It's actually a really great repair technique if your sound recording is not quite up to scratch, or it's not sort of settling and sitting how you want to. You can repair your sound with distortion, or at least mask it. Let's talk distortion on the voice. Right now I'm running quite a bit of extra saturation on my voice through this Senheiser MD21 microphone into the SPL Gain Station. This has like a transistor distortion and a tube gain as well, and that's all running into a FET limiter at the end there, so I can really like smash it against that upper wall. And to me, distortion on the voice can make it sound like nostalgic, like a jazz singer or like a radio broadcaster. Lately we're hearing artists like Lana Del Rey use a lot of distortion on their vocals, and it's really thick, this classic saturation. Sometimes you can get this vintage vibe from it. Other times you might sound like Marilyn Manson or something like that. It's really great for hip-hop vocals too. Can make you sound more masculine and really more forward. So don't be scared of using distortion. Again, it's a really great way just to help you cut through a mix, or to help you sound louder and more intense in the scenario. So let's do some A-Bing. So this is comparatively quite a clean tone, and it feels way more dynamic, but it might feel a little bit further away. So here's some regular distortion. This is like Marilyn Manson level of distortion. So I think this is a really usable distortion. Here's this clean tone again, listening to my voice, nice and smooth. It just doesn't quite have that excited edge on it. Again, this is another usable level of distortion. Way over the top distortion, but really good if you blend it in underneath like a clean vocal, so it'll help you push that vocal. And one more time, this is my clean tone. It might sound not as loud, even though technically the volume is the same. And this is another usable level of distortion. Don't hesitate to have two different sounds. You don't just have to heavily distort a sound. Distortion and clean working together. I hope you're digging the distortion on my voice in this part of the video, and if you actually go back to my other videos, which I'll link you down below, you can actually hear how much distortion I use, and I generally use a little bit of focus distortion as well, just because I think it sort of balances my vocal out a little bit. I'm not a very good speaker. We haven't even scratched the surface on ways that you can use distortion, whether it's in your production or your tone hunting or for practical purposes. We haven't even looked at tape saturation, saturation for gluing things together. We haven't even looked at saturation and distortion as nature's compression, as I've heard it referred to. The distortion is such a useful tool, and it's also such a fun thing, and it's a really great way to excite your sounds. There's just so many ways you can get that saturation as well. But for the final thing here, for the fifth element in our look through distortion, is just add distortion to your reverbs. Holy crap, it sounds better. So you got the added bonus there of the distortion, the focus distortion, and EQing the reverb as well. But straight away you just heard its presence, almost gave it sometimes like a spring reverb quality, or just that epicness. It made that sound just push forward. Distortion sounds amazing on all kinds of things: cello, saxophone, piano. Look, just a little bit can go a long way, or a lot can go even further. And even a lot, remember, you don't have to have just a distorted signal. Do it parallel, distorted and clean, and then find the balance you like and just watch your signal push. It's a really, really cool thing to do. Do it with your guitar live. Run 2 amps, run a splitter, run one as a distorted sound, because that will soften your transients, but you'll get the sustain, it'll soften your attacks, and then use a clean amp so you get that and you get the heavy attack sound, so that when you're genting, whoa, that's going to sound fat as. Look, so I hope you've enjoyed taking a look at these distortion adding processes with me today, and I hope you get something out of it for your own live performance or your own studio productions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to link all the products that I've used in the description below. Otherwise, you can head over to www.musoscorner.com.au and check out any more products, or even just give the guys a call, because they've got heaps of advice, and maybe there's something that I haven't mentioned in this video that they can help you out with. And like always, happy music making.